Good morning, welcome back to American Truck Simulator. I'm David Steele and here's me truck. And today we're back in the Freightliner FLB and we are testing a very close to production engine, a Caterpillar engine for the Steele Productions engine pack.
Thunder, like you've seen it a million times.
Let's go ahead and fire it up. There we go. Now, no great shakes on the sound. This sort of copies a lot of the other engines in the engine pack in that it's an ETS sound that we're using. But putting that to one side, yeah, I'm quite excited by the new engines. Been wanting to add these for a time to the Steele Productions engine pack, but one of the things I tend to do is I'll work on an engine range. I'll release the most popular variants, and typically not the most powerful one, and there's a few reasons for that. Typically these are less readily available, and I want to get time with the rest of the range. In this case, this particular engine is a 500 horsepower rated Caterpillar C13. Now the C13, the original C13, not the newer one, the C13D, don't get it confused with that. It's a 12.5 litre, so it's a 13 litre class engine. That was quite popular for a more weight sensitive application compared to the bigger, heavier C15s. Now, as well as the 500 horsepower C15, there's a 350 horsepower variant of the C11, and that's a 1450 foot-pound torque. That complements the existing 370, I think a 305 and maybe a 335 version. So just essentially a little bit of a tweak to the 370 version, though it does have a slightly different torque curve. I've applied some of the stuff that I've learned and refined ever since the time the C13's been released. And a 600 horsepower C15, and that's a 600 horsepower 1850 foot-pound torque engine. Caterpillar released those three variants in 2004, but they're going in a 2005 spec engine. Right now, we're just playing around with the middle one of the three, the 500 horse C13, and that's potentially the most interesting. And that's because the smaller capacity engines of sort of 500 horsepower, they can seem a little new now, but they aren't. They've been around for a while. What I mean by that is Freightliner released a 525 horsepower version of the DD13. It was it might have been 505, but it was over 500 horsepower version. And it's a new engine to the family, and that's fantastic. I mean, we like higher powered, smaller engines, at least on paper. Well, Caterpillar released this particular engine many years ago, 2004, but you can go further back. The M11 from Cummins was available in, I think, a 500 rated horsepower version as well. So there are smaller, more powerful engines. And in the words of a race engineer I knew, along the lines of, if you had a turbocharger, you can have as much power as you want. Your limiting factor is how much money you want to spend and how reliable you want it to be. That's a pretty cool sign, the Nebraska sign there. Anyway. Now, Caterpillar did make a 525 version of the C13, but that was only available for, I believe, the recreational vehicle, the RV, and possibly the fire truck markets. That's not available for heavy-duty engines. And it looks like they also did a 1750 foot-pound variant of the C13, and that appears to be the 525. There are some multi-torque versions available. I haven't done any of those yet. I like the idea of multi-torque, but the execution, I've never really been wholly satisfied with how it works. I think the thing is you can't really tell. you'd have to drive one back to back. So there's a few 1550, 1750 multi-torque variants, but unless you drove a 1550 across the range back to back with a multi-torque, you really wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
Turn right.
I mean, what's going on here? No! Wow, if you didn't get close. What's going on? Oh, I think maybe in a bit of a collision. Don't run into me. Yeah, I'm actually going to get out of this guy's way. Okay, thankfully everyone else has. Anyway, yeah, so there are 1750 foot-pound versions. That looks like it's the RV market only, and the multi-torques, they only use that torque in the upper gears. I haven't worked with them, not really found them to be that noticeable. For authenticity's sake, yes, I would include them, but in terms of how they feel on the road, really not that much in it. And if I'm wrong, and if you really would like to see a multi-torque version of any of these engines, please just let me know in the comments below. I have some torque curves. I just, when testing them, I'm like, yeah, this kind of feels like every other Caterpillar C13. Anyway, why would you use a 500 horsepower C13? Well, partly why wouldn't you? And that's because the more power the better. Well, there are times when you might want a little bit more horsepower. And the C13 range is included in the engine pack. It's going to range pretty wide. It might be 305, but it's low 300s to 500 horsepower. I don't know if I just went over the curb there, I wasn't looking. And that range, that's a pretty broad range. So you've got everything from the sort of local hauls where you don't want that much power, you don't need the driver to be abusing all the power, to the long hauls, or the bulk haulers where you want as much power as you can to haul a very heavy load with a pretty small engine, and everything in between. So yeah, the C13 looks like it was a particularly popular engine. The ACERT engines, they don't have the best reputation for reliability, but a lot of people liked their Cat, or they disliked their Caterpillar engines, so take what you will from that. The C15 is also interesting because there are only a few 600 horsepower rated engines that make do with 1850 foot-pounds of torque. There's the ISX, that's the ISX EGR, and I believe there's an ISX 15 as well, and now the Caterpillar C15. So why would you want a 600 horsepower engine with only 1850 when you can go along and buy a Cummins with 2050? Well, the very simple reason there is that you may not need all the extra torque, but maybe you need the power for high-speed cruising. Let's say you're in Texas or New Mexico and you want to cruise at 75 on the interstate. Well, having 600 horsepower versus 500 or 550 makes a difference. And there's another really big advantage to having that little bit less torque. I'm going to concentrate and negotiate on these corners. And that is, you don't need such a heavy-duty transmission and other drivetrain components. 20-50 foot-pounds of torque generally looks like it needs more specialized, super heavy-duty equipment. 1850 is a lot more mainstream, which therefore means cheaper, which means lighter and generally more cost-effective, unless you truly need the extra torque. So, yeah, I'm excited to be releasing those two. The C11, I'm aware that it's not quite such an exciting engine, and in fact the C11 is well, it's one of those engines that was not that popular. And the main reason for that appears to be its dimensions are identical to the C13. but it just simply wasn't as powerful. Yes, it was a smaller capacity engine, and yes, it might be a little bit more fuel efficient, but it weighs about the same, takes up the same amount of space, and can't be adjusted to produce 500 horsepower or 470 or 430 or whatever it is that you want.
Turn right.
If you've already got the weight penalty of a 13-litre engine, why would you buy an 11-litre? So yeah, the C11 was never that popular, and there weren't many ratings produced that I've found. The 350, it kind of fills the gap. Nothing wrong with the 370, nothing wrong with the 335. This one goes right in the middle. But a little less interesting, I suppose, but I like the sort of sub 400 horsepower engines, and if you've convoyed with me, or if you've watched many of my videos, yeah, I like to sort of struggle with 300, 305, 350 horsepower. I would say what's not to like, but I just like the challenge of it. Where am I supposed to go and load?
Safe and sound.
Could ask these chaps over here, but they look like they're arguing, so maybe let's not. I think it's round here. Cargo today is nearly £40,000, so it's going to give this 500 horsepower a bit of a workout, which is good. What we're looking from this engine is being able to cruise at higher speeds. Well, this is a World of Trucks trip. What that means is my speed limit's capped at 65. Looks like it's in the building. I guess we'll find out. But I'm going to be able to reach 65 miles an hour with a bit of a bump, and that's good. I'm not in Texas for that reason. Texas does have some parts of Texas, and to be fair, New Mexico, in fact, Utah, a lot of states have got higher speed limits. I'm going to switch to the external view, and I might just skip this, I think. Nobody really wants to see me struggle with this, right? You do? Well, yeah. I'm going to go ahead and basically skip it. Kind of a shame I skipped that, really. I almost did that in one no snaking around pass. Let's go ahead and get loaded up. So, what is it going to take, an hour? No, almost an hour.
Okay.
Right, so quick check. Packaged food, £39,662. Trip today is only 138 miles. We've got 9 hours, 18 minutes left in my shift. I'm going to go and just check the route, just because pretty simple today. I don't really have an alternative. I could take the southern route, I suppose, but I think we'll just stick with the northern route. It looks like that's single lane roads, so no, maybe not. Yeah, okay, so straightforward. What could possibly go wrong, right? Quick tug test. Yeah, I think we passed. Pretty sure that they got me to lower the wheels. Yes, they did. So this is a liftable rear axle truck, and the fourth axle is also steerable. So you'll see that as we go around the corner here, that the rearmost wheels are going to steer. That makes it a lot more agile. See, look at that. See, nobody's steering. So I can show that off with difficulty. But there. So that does make life quite a bit easier. Go ahead and get my windows closed. All right, let's head out of here, and yeah, let's hopefully won't get lost. I don't think I will. Not a good camera angle. Let's try this one again, I think. Got a double exhaust stack today, and that is not so much for extra performance. It does reduce the noise having two stacks at the back as opposed to one, and if you've got a lot of power or you've got higher exhaust flowing, it can can make a difference there, but it's more if you've got an engine that produces lots of torque low down. The gases they stay in your exhaust system longer, so typically the exhaust can produce more noise. Well, this engine produces its peak torque at 1200 RPM, and we do need to rev it to get the performance. But this is a 10-speed with a 3.7 final drive, so we're going to be cruising at 55 at around about 1250 revs, which could be noisy. Anyway, my justification for it here, I wanted to give it 2 stacks. Everything else is just me making up excuses. Right, that may have been a stop sign, but I was stopped for a second. Time for the wheel camera. Who doesn't like a bit of wheel camera?
Get ready to turn right. Turn right.
That is a very yellow combination. Yellow indeed. Currently driving this in automated, and that's mostly because I really wanted just to make sure that the automated box is completely fine with this kind of load. I will likely switch it to manual a little bit later in the trip. It's been a while since I've changed gear myself. Well, hasn't really. I always say that, but usually it's just been a couple of runs. And you do get a good feeling for the extra performance when you drive it manual, especially because if you've got the same torque as a similar engine in the range, I think the 430 horsepower is also a 1650 torque engine. Most of the time, if you use the automated mode, it's going to keep you at the same revs. So there's not really that much of an advantage in getting a more powerful engine unless you climb a hill, which actually, when you think about it, is pretty much perfect. Because most of the time, you don't need the extra go-go. You just need the extra torques. Well, it's like the main road is busy. That's always fun. I did a little bit of work on my NVIDIA driver settings to see if we can sharpen up the image and solve some of the anti-aliasing, and it does seem to have paid dividends, which is nice. It does look nice and crisp, but there's a bit of a stutter every now and again, and that's probably because the zoom or the scaling is set to 300%, and I can fix that, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. Let's just get on with the drive. Alright, gonna be quiet for a little bit. I'm just gonna let this get up to speed. I'll be back talking in just a jiffy. You certainly do feel the weight of the cargo, as you'd expect to, really. 1650 foot-pounds, it's not a tremendous amount by modern standards. It's very respectable, and you can heavy haul with this. Probably would want a shorter final drive. Its speed's trickling up. Let's go ahead and give it a bit more power. That's full power, and yeah, it's actually picking up very nicely. Okay, let's go ahead and set my cruiser at 65. So we're at 1500 revs. That's pretty much what I wanted to spec the truck at. So if I went with a 3.9 final drive, that would be about 1550 revs at 65, which is completely fine. I wanted to try and stick to 1500. Very yellow machine there. And it looks fast. I mean, it's not. God, a lot of yellow in today's drive. The flowers, the road signs, other trucks. Yeah, we're cruising along here. Let's go ahead and cut the power. Let's use a bit of engine brake here. Force the downshift. Stay where you are. Oh, well, that made me very nervous. And a big stutter for the game as well. What earth is that? Is that a bear? No, it's a cow. Okay. Alright, I'm going to switch to manual now. Let's turn off the engine brake.
Left, and then turn left.
By manual, I don't have a H-gate, a stick shifter, so this is sequential. Now, something that not a lot of people probably know, because it's not something I really talk about, is a user controller. That much is probably pretty much clear from the erratic steering you sometimes see from me. But also, I've reversed the traditional shift buttons. So throttle or gas is on the right and brake is on the left. And to shift up, typically on the controller, it's mapped to be the right shoulder button, so the button above the throttle pedal. Yeah, that does pull very nicely. I'm working it hard. Go ahead and block shift. Yeah, and it's okay block shifting. So going back, yes, I've remapped the buttons. So the button above the brake is my upshift, and the button above my gas is my downshift. And the main reason for that is you often want to brake and downshift at the same time in a truck. Now you probably want to do this in a car too, at least a racing car. But it's one of those very useful little tricks where if you're using an engine brake, you don't want to let go of the brake pedal to shift down. You just don't want to do it because you know you're trying to control 80,000 pounds of potentially runaway truck. Let's try moving off in second gear. Yeah, it's okay with it. I can pretty much block shift. I can skip gears on the way up, even with a 10 speed. Should know better than to block shift from the lowest 5 to the top 5, but there we go. It still was fine with it.
Keep right, and then turn right.
Now the C15 is a very wonderful engine for all that low down stompy torque. Its peak torque is produced pretty much at 1,000 revs. That most of the C15 definitions do have peak torque at 1,000 revs and upwards. The 600, I've tweaked that up just a little bit. It's almost peak torque at 1,000 revs. So the torque curve shape looks very, very slightly different to the rest of the range. And I'll go back and amend all the rest of them to suit. Amending those torque curves is a little bit more complicated than a normal change, but it's something that can be done. It might delay the release of this update to the engine pack, but chances are by the time you're even aware of this, because you're watching this, it will be out anyway, so it'll be completely fine. No one's going to know. Life's good. That's not plan anyway. Let's extend the revs. Let's get her up to 45. Looks like we're going to have to stop soon, but maybe we can beat the light. Maybe. I may regret shifting lane here. Maybe not. He got out of my way. Okay. So 9th gear at full throttle. We're hardly burning through 50, but we are picking up nicely. I'm just gonna rev it out a little bit in ninth. Yeah, I'm very happy with that acceleration. I could do with finding a nice big hill to go up at high speed. But yeah, I think that's completely fine. I'm very happy with that. Right, then that's got my cruise on. So we will have burnt a fair bit of fuel doing that, as opposed to doing it with the automated box. But I just wanted to kind of explore and see what it was like. Well, I suppose to verify what it's like, because I know what it's like. Oh, collision. Let's force a double downshift. It didn't really like me doing that, but I still did it, and it didn't blow up, so therefore it's all good. Did these guys collide? It looks like it. I'm not sure. Let's go ahead and tap resume. Back in automated mode, back in boring mode, I suppose you might say, back in economy mode. Right, well, I'm happy with the C13. I've always liked the C13. I thought it's a nice compromise between the sort of gruntiness of the C15 with the well, I wouldn't say anemic, but not so gruntiness of the C11. The C10 feels quite nice on the road, and the C12. C11's always been felt a little bit just not really in the same league, and I think Caterpillar deliberately did that to the C11. I think what they really wanted people to do is you may as well just buy a C13 or a C15. It may also be that the ACERT, that the emissions control systems that were installed really did gut the engine. And that's another story, to be fair. Same criticism can probably be leveled at most engines that were around pre-2004, especially 2010 and post. Can't outrun this red pickup, but that's okay. Well, for construction work, it looks like the road might be closed, and that's gonna really suck. It does. We don't have, or maybe not. We don't have the automatic downshift function enabled in this particular version of the C13. It's one of those settings that can annoy players that use an automated box, and so I try and reserve that for those definitely fleet engines. Now you can customize and tune how well that works. Fairly easily you can adjust the settings, but getting it to not really feel excessive but also beneficial, that can be difficult. What I mean by that is, okay, so if you jump in something like the Cummins X12 efficiency from the Steele Productions engine pack, that has quite an aggressive downshift. And set that up because, well, the reason if you're a fleet purchaser and you're trying to persuade your drivers to accept a 12-litre engine as opposed to a 15-litre engine, one of their criticisms is going to be, well, the engine brake's a bit weak and it's a much smaller engine, so it's not as good as a big engine. More is better, more power, more braking. So the X12 will quite aggressively downshift. It'll drop 1 or 2 or sometimes even 3 gears when you hit that engine brake toggle.
Turn left.
And that can be kind of noisy, and I wouldn't say invasive, but yeah, it can wake you up if you weren't really expecting it. It's perfect for the kind of environment where for vocational duties, you need some extra engine braking. At least in my opinion, it's perfect. Some of the line haul, some of the bigger engines, and if it is for fleet use, so your ISX15, your 400s, your 425s, your 450s, they might just drop down one gear. They have a pretty solid engine brake anyway. This one, the function is not enabled. When you turn on the engine brake and you're with an automated or an automatic, it doesn't downshift, other than when it needs to because your engine speed's getting a bit low. But if you have an opinion about that, go ahead and let me know in the comments below. It would be possible to configure an engine definition with, bias for automated and bias for manual, but kind of fussy. And there are already hundreds of engines in the Steele Productions engine pack, or hundreds and hundreds of variants of engines. And you're asking to maybe double, potentially up to doubling that number. I don't know whether I really want to have 400 engine variants for a given truck. That's a lot. That's a lot to filter through, especially seeing as I imagine not everyone's going to be interested in knowing all of those. That was the mindset originally between having the separate engine packs available, and then it got a lot to keep them up to date. They got a lot to maintain, so I amalgamated them all. Thank goodness for a filter, right? But I am aware that there's a lot of engines in the engine pack. Some people maybe don't want them all. And the QSX19 and the MX13, those engine packs are still remarkably popular. Anyway, we're almost at my destination. So I'm gonna probably not do the difficult parking, I don't think, but I'd like to skip ahead and see what sort of mileage that we got from this trip. So I don't think it will have been great. We've been working it hard, trying to get up to 65, and it's kind of a short trip. That's not great for fuel consumption. I'm gonna say 5.5 miles per gallon. You may be wrong. It's a little low for a 13-litre class engine, but it's not particularly set up for economy. It shakes its fist in the direction of economy, but it's not the same as like an X12 efficiency or an MX11. Okay, so if you care about fuel consumption and you're interested to see what it is, go ahead and pop your comment in there now, and I'll give you a few seconds. And we'll go ahead and see what we got. Okay, here's the suspense. Right, 171 miles, alright, and 33 gallons dead, so just over 2, so about 2.25. Okay, so that's actually lower than I thought. Not a great consumption for an 11-litre engine, 13-litre engine even. But it does have 500 horsepower, and we were working it hard, so it makes sense. This trip in an MX13 with 500 horsepower, we probably would have been much closer to 6, even driven the way I did. And that engine also has 1850 foot-pounds of torque, so could go either way, but likely better, lower fuel consumption. Okay, well, hopefully you like what you saw, and if you have, you know exactly what to do. Go ahead and leave a like. You can subscribe for more adventures. If you didn't like it, go ahead and let me know. It's always good to know where I'm messing up. If you think this sucks, yeah, go ahead and let me know. If you get personal, I'll probably be personal back. But thanks so much for watching, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Goodbye.